Good evening, everyone, and happy Teachers' Day to all. And we, the entire Electronics and Communication Engineering Department, SRM University, Andhra Pradesh, are welcoming to you all for the webinar on ECE in Industry Talk Series 1. We have a great belief and hope that all the students from Electronics and Communication Engineering will surely get few novel and interesting ideas today by our esteemed speaker who is going to share his valuable experience and knowledge with us, along with future scopes available in various fields for Electronics and Communication Engineering students. Today's webinar is titled as Advancements and Career Opportunities in Embedded and Automotive Embedded Systems. And we are having our renowned speaker, Hanumant Managoli, with us for the webinar. The speaker comes with nearly 35 years of industry experience. After brief engagements at a PSU and private firm, he joined Indian Space Research Organization's Satellite Center as scientist and worked on the second generation INSET series of spacecraft. He then moved to be the founding member for the India Center for PLC Systems and Software Development Group at ABB. His next stint was the Capit Cummins for the automotive and aerospace domains. Mr. Managoli headed the software services group of Capit Bangalore. Mr. Managoli is also well experienced with software engineering process, frameworks, and standards such as CMMI, Auto Spice, Functional Safety and Standards of ISO 26262, IEC 61508, and UL 1998. Presently, he is working as a principal consultant of Pi Square Technologies, a Michigan-based automotive embedded engineering services and consulting company. Therefore, now I would like to invite our speaker for sharing his valuable thoughts with us. Please welcome Mr. Hanumant Managuli.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Omji and Professor Uday Shankar, and also thanks to Professor Shiv Shankar too for this invite. Very excited to be sharing some of my thoughts and views with the next generation or the young generation of upcoming electronic engineers. Are they only from electronics or they are from electrical also for this audience?
Yeah, like electronics and communication engineering.
Basically on the ENC engineers. So good afternoon to all of you. So I'm seeing more and more people are now joining in. So let's get started. Okay. Of course, the title given to today's topic is embedded and automotive. So I will spend more time on the automotive. So that has been my immediate past domain, especially in the last say close to 20 years of my 30 years of career I have spent in the automotive and avionics domain. So I'll spend probably more time on the automotive, the exciting times of the automotive embedded domain. Let me start with my presentation. I hope everybody is able to see my shared screen. Yeah, so though the title is World of Automotive Electronics, so we will be touching upon the other embedded electronics systems also. So thank you for my introduction to the team there. Maybe as I speak, I'll pick up few other tidbits that I would have learned during my tenure in the industry, and I'll try to share that. So presently, I'm a consultant. As the introduction mentioned, I'm a consultant in the embedded and automotive domain with Pi Square Technologies. And our motto itself is there is always a better way to do things. And I am sure the entire audience will agree to that. The moment you do something, okay, you will soon realize that, yeah, I think I could have done it in a much better way. Okay, you become intelligent after the event, but can you become intelligent because somebody has done it in some way and you can think of doing it in a better way. So the learning can be from self as well as through the other activities. So I belong to Pi Square Technologies. Yeah, as I said again, so we are at the heart of where the action happens, especially in the automotive domain. So Michigan is the state, and Detroit, its capital city is where you name the automotive related ecosystem company. They're all located in just the way Bangalore is said to be the capital of IT. Similarly, Detroit is the capital of automotive. Of course, the perspective is changing. I'll touch upon that, as we go along. Okay, so we are working with several OEMs, combination of OEMs and tier ones and tier twos. That is a typical ecosystem terminology that you will see in any industry. So there is an OEM, for example, some of the names that you see is Ford or Honda or yeah, maybe your Tata Motors itself, your Maruti Suzuki. They're all the OEMs, and they all work with the overall ecosystem by taking the products and systems from their set of tier ones. So some of the tier ones that is listed here is ZF, Continental, Nexteer, Bosch. They all are in the layer of what industry generally calls it as the tier ones. Again, tier twos are the people who again further provide services to these tier ones. So that's how the ecosystem is there. And we at PySquare, we are working with that entire ecosystem. Some of our activity happens with OEMs, some with tier ones, and some with tier twos. Yeah, these are the domains we are associated. Yeah, just open the car bonnet and you will see some of these technologies. Your infotainment, connected vehicles, where the new cars or the cars which are likely to come in future. Okay, they keep talking to each other so that they can perform in a better way. They can perform in a safe way. They can take the passenger safely from point A to point B. So safety again. So safety comes into picture because they are all connected vehicles, so they can exchange their information. Within safety, it's a huge domain, the safety system within the car itself. And yeah, just like how you can update your laptop, okay, your Windows, you're able to now download a new patch and it can overwrite itself. Very similar technology is already on the way for the cars also. Okay, it's called as over-the-air updates. And the moment you bring something from outside world through the internet, an immediate impact is there on the cybersecurity. Okay, and so I'm not sure how many of you are in touch with the news contents related to automotive domain. So the moment somebody says, yeah, I'm having an OTA feature in my car, there will always be somebody who will challenge that and say, I think now I can hack into your car and control it remotely. And those are the examples that are already there out on the world. And hence now there is an input for the design engineers also on how to make it more and more secure with the new models of the vehicles. Compliance is another related area where PySquare works. So basically compliance is required because any product that you develop in any industry has to be certified. Okay, so be it a medical device, be it an industrial automation device, maybe something related even with the food industry also. So similarly to that, the vehicle industry also, the automotive industry also, okay, has its own set of standards, and the software, the product that you develop has to be certified, and hence it has to be compliant to the standards that you are claiming to be working with. Else, you cannot be selling your products there. So these are some of the areas that we work upon. Yeah, again, another list of our clients and partners over here. Yeah, you can see more OEMs and the tier ones over in this list, particular list. Yeah, we are there at Michigan, Detroit, and we also have our offices at Hyderabad and Bangalore. Okay, so that's a short introduction to PySquare activities. So let's move on. I'm sure you'll be able to, all the audience, you'll be able to definitely recognize all the domains that are listed over here or that you are able to see. For the sake of time, I'll quickly list them as we go along. I'm assuming you're able to see my cursor movement also. So you have, this is your banking ATM, if you can recognize the picture over here. So you have the avionics, the Airbus A380, some home automation, okay, some animation systems or medical electronics related picture is what you see here. This is your rocketry or the launch vehicles, your media, okay, the entire SCADA itself for the industrial automation. This is your automotive systems. This is your locomotive. Okay, so just for a reference, anything that moves, they are all generally put under the locomotives or the mobility industry. So you have the car also coming under the mobility industry, and locomotives also coming under the mobility industry. So again, your usual office and automation systems, your printing stations, your Xerox machines and other stuff in the office. This is your test and measurement instrumentation. Okay, So that's a separate industry itself on its own. So your again your white goods in the home appliances, your 5G, which we are all eagerly waiting. So these are all some of the things which are more closer to some of the drones or unmanned aerial vehicles. Yeah, this is the factory and its factory automation. Okay, yeah, this is the all pervasive the device which is making our life easy as well as difficult. Okay, the mobile and the handheld industry, and of course the space industry over here. Okay, those are the few domains, okay, that were visible in this particular picture over there. We all agree with this. Okay, embedded domain touches our everyday life in many ways, and even unknowingly itself, we may not even be aware or counting. Okay, but then we are influenced by the embedded systems in our daily life, right from your morning alarm itself. Okay, you get ready, maybe some places your shower itself may be embedded systems. It will mix the right amount of hot and cold water for you, and throw out the water at the right pressure that you have desired settings. Okay, and then you have your mobile devices, your television is there, you get out, you get into your car, you go to your office, you get into an elevator or escalator. Everything, each of them is an example of the embedded devices which we encounter on a daily basis. Okay, and we are taking it for granted itself. Okay, that's how routine it has become. And one of the estimates says, okay, this itself is an old estimate. In an average 24-hour day in a developed country, a person is likely to encounter about 170 embedded devices in his 24 hours day. And whatever I gave as an example, I think it did even touch about some 10 or 12 also. So which means there are so many things. It may be your watch itself, it may be your smart watch, where you are monitoring your exercise cycles, your gym cycles, your sleep cycles. Okay, and we are not even touching when you make a visit to a factory or a hospital. So these are the numbers, and this number is set to double in the next 5 years. Okay, again, it's very difficult to imagine what are those likely 300 devices we are supposed to encounter on a daily basis, on an average. Okay. Yeah, and another fun factor is, okay, fun and serious is, these devices, okay, the price is from right from $1, which means if you just convert to our Indian rupees, okay, it can be as little as even 50 to 100 rupees also. What is available for about 50 to 100 rupees as an embedded device? I'm not sure. In Bangalore, where I stay, so we have what is called as China Bazaar, or there used to be a Burma Bazaar. You get your FM radio for 50 rupees. Okay, a small rectangular piece of device, okay, which plays out nice FM connections, FM radio connections. Can you imagine if he is able to sell it for about 50 to 70 rupees? What would be his manufacturing cost and what would be his margin? Okay, it has your tuner, it has what your your speaker output is available. It has a plastic frame. He has to provide a connector for your audio jack, and all that together he is able to give it for about just about 50 to 60 rupees. They are available at the Burma Bazaar. It's not that they are sold at a discount. They are available at that price. And assume he makes about 10 rupees profit or 20 rupees profit. His manufacturing cost is about $0.50 now. Okay, so that is the one extreme lower range of the embedded devices. And on the higher end, okay, you bring in your spacecrafts or the avionics domain, okay, or your launch vehicles. Okay, the cost is as high as even 1 billion also, or maybe at least a few millions. So those are the extremes of the simplicity versus the complexity, and against the price range itself. Okay, this again very well known. The embedded systems, they have to work in hostile environments. Okay, as the picture shows here. Okay, the operational environment is supposed to be from Siberia to Sahara. And when I say Siberia, so it's -10, -20, -30, -40 degrees centigrade. And Sahara, okay, or there are some places in the US where the vehicles are taken for extreme weather testing. There is a place called as Death Valley. I'm sure some of the professors might have seen or heard about this place, where the temperatures can go up to nearly plus 50 and 50 and above, where the vehicles are tested for their performance. So we have the electronic systems which have to work from Siberia to Sahara and from undersea to outer space. Okay, hence the arrow for my picture is going beyond this screen itself. So these systems are supposed to work in those hostile environments. In the moment you go to outer space, they are supposed to be subject to intense radiations. They are supposed to withstand those radiations and still provide the required performance. Okay, now for whatever pictures that you saw in my first slide in terms of the various domains, all of them are very important. Okay, because they provide us some services in some way. I may not be using all of them on a regular basis, but to some industry, to some people, they have been providing services, okay, or essential performance. But however, as my line in this particular slide says, some of them are more critical than the others. Okay, all of them are critical, definitely. Okay, otherwise they would not be there in the first place. If they are not critical, or if they are not providing any functionality, they wouldn't be there at all in the first place. We all appreciate their importance, but then within that, some are more critical. And when I say critical, it is more related to the part of where their operational issues can result in some injury, or in some extreme cases, fatalities also to the users or the people around those products or the equipment. So that case, you'll be able to appreciate this particular line where I'm telling you it's more critical than the others. One of the things that straight away comes is your car, as an example. Okay, some of them may be linked with your medical devices. Can you imagine? I am a very healthy person. I go to a doctor. Okay, and doctor, yeah, he does the usual. He does the usual checkups and says, yeah, please lie down. I want to measure the BP, and the BP machine says, my blood pressure is 140 by 100. Okay, he says, yeah, the BP machine is showing 140 by 100. Okay, from the moment you go home, start taking these 2 tablets, okay, regularly for the rest of your life. Okay, so he has used a BP measurement machine. Okay, and the machine shows the numbers as 140 by 100, and he says, yeah, the machine is showing 140 by 100. So here are the 2 tablets that you have to take, one in the morning and one in the evening. Okay, and for what? For the rest of your life. And what if later on it is found that the machine is malfunctioning? Okay, instead of whatever, 120 by 80, some error is there and it's showing 140 by 100. Okay, for some fault that is there. Okay, maybe it's just one of kind of a measurement that it has shown. It's like any other device, no? Okay, until yesterday it is working fine. Okay, today something has happened. But then if the device itself is not very intelligent, if the device itself is not able to detect that it is able to get into some troubles in terms of the measurement or the display, everything is okay, only the display is an issue, or the sensor is an issue. You just don't know when something is not working, what could be the actual issue in the whole system itself. But then we know now that particular BP machine is more critical definitely than our mobile device. At least my mobile will not injure me. Of course, your mobile is leading to a lot of injuries nowadays. Okay, just because the batteries explode, or the batteries get overheated, and the mobiles can explode, or it can cause injuries. Hopefully there are no fatalities because of the mobile battery explosion, but definitely there have been injuries. Okay, so that's one example. Then you have all other devices like your industrial automation. What if some of the PLCs malfunction? Okay, it's supposed to detect all the proper settings and ensure that let us say one boiler is there, it is not supposed to go beyond certain temperature, or there is a mixer, okay, which mixes some, I don't know, some chemicals or something, and is not supposed to rotate beyond maybe some RPM. Or you just take your good old washing machine in your home. What if it is not properly designed, and what if the RPM of the drum becomes uncontrolled. Can you imagine what can happen to the operator who is just standing next to that washing machine? It can really cause grievous injuries. So hence, among all the the pictures that you saw, the photos that you saw in the previous one, all of them are critical, but definitely we have to agree that some of them are more critical than the others. And then when you are designing some things which are critical, okay, with respect to their operational safety of the people around that or the people who are sitting inside a car, then the way you are supposed to design and develop a system of a critical nature versus relatively less critical, then it has to be defined. They cannot be the same way. Okay, and that applies even to the people who are working in the industry also. Okay, so we'll touch upon some of these things now as we move along. Yeah, you all agree with this again? New cars are launched every other month. Okay, if not every 15 days nowadays. New mobile models hit the market almost every week. Okay, you have purchased a mobile which is just about let's say 20, 30 or 40,000 rupees. Even before you fully understand, you want to buy that particular mobile which you have purchased. Even before you fully get the features or get familiar with all the features, a new mobile is there on the market again, and then say, yeah, I want to buy the new one now. Okay, that's how the marketing happens in terms of some of these industries. Okay, and then consumer goods. Okay, your TV, refrigerator, washing machine, air conditioning, they keep on adding innovative features. Do we all think whatever we are having currently, is it sufficient for our life, or do we have actually more than what is required? I think the best TVs are there now. No? Do we want any improvement in our TV technology? Do you want improvement in your air conditioning system or your refrigerator? I think they're all really good one at this point in time. But then that is not sufficient. Okay, so hence the organizations or the industries, they keep on throwing more and more innovative features over there. Just to give an example, air conditioning. Okay, everything is okay. AC is sitting at the one of the walls in your office or room. Okay, and it's throwing out the cool air. But then comes one new advertisement where you see, I mean, I keep telling in a more humorous way, Miss Katrina Kaif is there on that particular advertisement. I hope you will remember that ad. Yeah, she moves from one place in the room to another place, and the AC follows her. Okay, and when I say AC follows her, not the AC as a system itself, the flow, okay, the vents that are there, okay, they detect, the air conditioning system detects, okay, where the load is generally more. Okay, in fact, one of the innovation or the R&D that is happening in the air conditioning industry is, and this is again a normal one. If you see in a room, if the air conditioning is there, it unnecessarily makes our metallic chairs, okay, or any other equipment that you are having in your room, that also is becoming cold. Whereas the AC is, of course, ACs are meant for keeping your equipment also on a controlled environment. But I don't want my metal chair, okay, to be cold unnecessarily. So energy is being wasted there. A part of the air conditioning system energy is being wasted on cooling a metallic chair. So can it be detected that this is a system which need not be cooled to the level at which it is now currently doing? Right now it is doing a blind cooling of everything that is there in the room or a particular chamber. So some experimentation and R&D is happening in those domains. Just look at that. Okay. And now if you're having go to a shop and one AC says it cools everything and another AC says, no, I don't cool the unnecessary metallic objects in a room, and if it's going to cost about 10,000 rupees more, I'll buy that. Okay, that's how the development and marketing happens. And next one, the personal computing devices, your laptop. Okay, they keep getting thinner, they keep getting lighter, they are having more power, they are having faster in terms of their operations. Okay, and they are cheaper. Okay, so that's how the innovation keeps happening, and this is what I call it as a sense of urgency. Looks like everybody is in a hurry. Okay, to keep on throwing new models and new innovations to the market or to the buyers. Okay, this is one segment of the industry. Let's see. Okay, do you see the same urgency everywhere else? Why can't Airbus as a company or Boeing as a company? Why can't they make a new model of aircraft every week? if Nokia can make a new mobile every week, why don't Airbus or Boeing or Embraer, another organization, why don't they make they're stuck with their models for years together, or sometimes even decades together. Okay, what is given here is the cycle time. I'm introducing a word called as the innovation cycle time or the product cycle times. Okay, for mobiles, yeah, it may be a couple of months. Okay, but for some of the industries like the avionics, it may be even some 20 years. So they take about 20 years in the making. Can you imagine? A concept is thought of, and for it to be realized and available in the open market for somebody to buy, some Indian Airlines wants to buy or Singapore Airlines to buy. Okay, they say we are working on a model which is going to come out in the market 15 to 20 years from now. Please wait for that, and the world waits for that. That's how that particular industry works. Okay, very similarly, your defense technologies, they don't change overnight, they don't change over months, they don't change over the years. Okay, so your industrial control systems, of course, with the advent of the technology, even industrial control systems are having rapid changes, but definitely not into few fortnights or few months. And similarly, the critical healthcare electronics, your MRI machine is not you don't get a new version of that every year. So that is the amount of technology that goes in to ensure that these are made to last, these are made to provide those functionality for years together. They are not the kind of use and throw or the consumer oriented or the commercial consumer oriented domains or technologies. Yeah, and then that brings us to this entire world of what is the IoT, okay, the buzzword. But very surprisingly, if you ask me, IoT has been there for the moment the electronics and the electronic product got invented. IoT has been there. Okay, only internet has been added. Okay, the device have been there. You pick any device, yeah, it acts on some sensors, it does some processing. Of course, if you're having a microprocessor, a microcontroller, it is making your job simpler. But otherwise, maybe 30 years back or maybe 40 years back, whatever logic you can think of was implemented using discrete electronic devices. So they were still doing processing. Okay, there was an input, there was a processing, and yeah, obviously it is controlling some output. It could be a motor, it could be another switch, it could be a wall, it could be just a display itself. But then, with the internet, pervading our daily life, the IoT is seeing a big boom. Okay, in the last few years. Of course, okay, don't count the 2020 as a COVID year where everything is slowing down. The world looks really bleak. Okay, so that's in fact one of the questions that I ask is, especially when we are having a face-to-face discussions, is why does the brake exist in a car? Okay, very people will be surprised when I ask this question. In a car, why does why the brake is needed? An obvious answer is, yeah, because we want to stop. That's a very obvious answer. Okay, because we want to control the car, we want to stop. Okay, and that is the reason the brake exists. But a better answer is, because of the brake, okay, we are able to confidently drive at a higher speed. I know there's a brake, and hence I'll have the confidence that okay, I can increase my speed and go at a faster pace on the road. I know there is a brake available as my backup in case I want to stop either slowly or even emergency also. So let us take this 2020, the COVID year, as a break, which will enable us to innovate faster or move faster in the coming years. So this was a prediction which was about, if I remember, I think it's about some 5 to 6 years back, some market survey. So what it was predicting was close to about half of the Earth's population, okay, will be connected in some way or the other. Okay, when you say 4 billion, so it's roughly about half of the world's population. So the economy wise or the revenue wise, it's about $4 trillion US. Huge amount of apps to be developed related to that, and huge, I mean, mind-boggling number of devices that have to be connected, and then okay, the amount of data exchange that happens. Okay, huge amount of data, just because every device is on the internet now. You can have a again, I'll use my favorite example, the washing machine sitting in my home in Bangalore in India can talk to the washing machine which is sitting in, let us say, in Japan, in Tokyo, in somebody else's house, and exchange thoughts. Hey, how are you doing? So the washing machine in Bangalore in India will talk to the washing machine in Japan, in Tokyo, and exchange thoughts on how you are performing. What is the temperature in Tokyo and what is the temperature in Bangalore? For that temperature, how has been your performance in terms of, I don't know, your wash quality, maybe if you can measure that. Okay. And if they say at some, let us say 1000 RPM, I am facing some issue here in Bangalore at, whatever, temperature or the weather conditions, okay, the moisture and other conditions. In Japan, for the same conditions, at the same RPM, are you seeing some difficulty? If yes, I think let us report to the design house. So one of the washing machine will talk to the design house, okay, who may be sitting somewhere else in some other part of the world, and say, okay, at Bangalore I'm okay, but at Tokyo, okay, the same brand of washing machine in the similar situations is behaving in a different way. Which means without a service personnel visiting your house, okay, the design people are getting new inputs on how they can improve the performance of the device itself. So that is the power that the IoT can bring in, wherein you have, of course, the control is one of the aspects only in terms of the IoT. Okay, when I say Internet of Things and I want to monitor and control some devices, okay, immediately examples that are given is I can operate my geyser in my home, okay, sitting somewhere else, okay, or I am reaching home, okay, from a travel, and before I arrive at home, I want the lights to be on or the geysers to be operational and the temperature to be set at this particular degree centigrade. So nice and ready shower I can take. So these are the examples that are there. But what I gave, okay, where the devices talk to their the service centers, the devices talk to their, or the your Walmart or your Big Bazaar that may be there in your town. Okay, the store itself will talk to the go down. Look, one of this brand of I don't know some chips or some other vegetable item or a grocery item, the shelf is getting empty. So can the next load come before the rack becomes empty? Okay, that's a challenge anyway for the supply chain management people. What if the store itself can talk to the go down and arrange for the next supply of the goods? Okay, so that's just some examples. The next slide actually throws where you are having an entire city, okay, which comes under the potential of or the possibilities of the IoT, okay, to be controlled. You name it, okay. So which means it can be monitored, okay, it can be processed, and it can be controlled. Because you are able to monitor it, you can control it. It can be anything. It could be your traffic monitoring and controlling. It could be your air pollutioning and monitoring and controlling. Okay, so some examples that are given here. There is a golf course. Okay, on a normal day, in a normal way, okay, the entire golf course is being watered. Okay, those sprinkler systems are there. Okay, throughout the golf course, and the water is being sprinkled over there. But what if I can bring an IoT and see only where there are relatively dry patches of grass is there? Okay, I want to water them. If the grass is already good, okay, in terms of what is required for a golfing game, why waste water unnecessarily over there? Okay, I can save, I don't know, maybe 25 liters of water every day and multiply that by 365. So immediately you'll start seeing the benefit of that. And one of the examples that is given here is, let us say, water leakage. If I can monitor in a city water supply system, okay, the water flow, okay, the pressure and the flow at various strategic points, okay, ideally they are all supposed to be same, and also where the water is being let out to individual houses, at what diameter, at what pressure that is being let out. If I have all this data, I can find out if there is any unauthorized tapping of water, or if there is any leakage in the water system itself. Can I automate my wastage or the garbage collection? Today, the garbage collection vehicles, okay, they have to necessarily go around every single road, or they have to stop at every single house itself. Okay, but what if my waste management, including the waste segregation itself? Okay, waste collection is what I am trying to tell now. So if I can find out, okay, that only when the bin is full, I will get an alert and only I'll go and pick from only there. So that way, my operational efficiency can be increased. Otherwise, I blindly go to every house and pick up. But otherwise, yeah, if there can be an indication to my system that okay, the garbage is now filling up. Okay, please come and pick me. Okay, to the garbage, segregation itself. I don't know, maybe your wet and dry wastages. It immediately, in fact, currently, I'm actually working with another a partner where we are trying to do an automation of the hawker zone management. Okay, in any city, yeah, there is a hawking zone where the sellers come and sell their wares. Okay, typically the push cart kind of the people. Can that entire system be automated? Okay, you come and sell at a particular location which is access controlled. Okay, right now they don't pay regular taxes because it's very difficult to track them also. Today they are here in this road, tomorrow they may be at some other place. But all said and done, they are actually occupying a valuable municipal space. Okay, the cart is let's say about 3 feet by 5 feet. Cart is there. They are utilizing the municipal area space, and obviously they are supposed to pay charges for that, or they come and sit at one particular place on a daily basis. So can the whole system be automated, and then you can also extend any benefits for them. Okay, you simply link every related data for their operation and link them and say yeah, they are a benefit. They are able to get the benefit for your some compensation, some insurance. So it immediately throws up the entire gamut of the possibilities. What it has is, again said, there has to be a device for sensing and controlling. So that is your embedded systems. Then obviously the entire data has to be linked to the cloud or linked to the internet. There has to be some gateway. Okay, some may be operating on Bluetooth, some may be on some Wi-Fi. Various communication models may be there. So this gateway will help you in pitching this entire data onto the cloud. And once you have the data, huge amount of data management that you can do in terms of getting the intelligence out of that. So your AI and ML comes into picture, and then obviously the whole data has to be presented to somebody. It could be the government who is monitoring this data. It could be a user who is monitoring the data. It could be the managing director of a company who is monitoring this data. So you have the embedded devices, and what is the embedded device here? Every single system that you are having, your induction stove in your house becomes an IoT now. Your refrigerator becomes an IoT. Your gas stove, it can be controlled through the IoT so that it can be switched off if it is not operated properly from remote itself. So your fans, your bulbs, if you just think of every single device which can talk to each other and tell its performance and upload its data. Okay, that is the reason those numbers are coming. Multiple millions or billions of devices which can be connected to the internet and talk to each other and share the intelligence. Okay, so that's the possibilities that it throws up. Yeah, this is another expectation from any industry again. Okay, everything remaining same, the cost is supposed to come down. Okay, just look at it as a buyer. If I am buying, okay, so everything remaining same, okay, in 6 months the cost of the mobile will come down. It has to come down, and that's our experience. I think the next generation will definitely agree with that. Okay, now everything remaining same, the features has to go up. If I have to pay the same 10,000 rupees, okay, for the mobile, I would want the features to go up. I don't want the same feature, either the price has to come down or the feature has to go up. Similarly, the quality, again, everything remaining same, the quality has to go up. Okay, maybe last time there was some malfunctioning of I don't know, the screen or some keyboard or some audio jack had some issue, but I want to know an improved quality at the same price. Okay, and the last one again, definitely not the final one, time. Okay, can you imagine now? Some few years ago, the Apple, if it launches a new product, okay, it used to be launched in the US first, and then over a period of time it will come to the rest of the world. Okay, now today the cycle time of the launches is so short, okay, that the moment it is launched, or maybe sometimes it is launched in the other countries first, and then it is launched in the US because of the sheer market potential. Okay, similarly the models of the systems also. I don't want to wait for another 1 year, okay, for the new model to come. I'm having money in my pocket. Okay, I want to spend it, but where is that? You as a company, you cannot take more time to get the new model. I want it to be faster, or I will go to another company which is able to make faster products with the new models. Okay, so that is a kind of an expectation. And all that expectation will also come on every single employee of any organization who is working on a particular product. Okay, if you took 1 year to do something, okay, as an example, you cannot be taking the same 1 year, as a repeat activity. You are supposed to be, showing your productivity improvement and do it, I don't know, maybe in half the time, or at least something which can be measurable and appreciated. Okay, and another expectation, I'll always give that, TV versus remote, that's my favorite example. Okay, is you have a TV which costs about roughly 50,000 rupees. Okay, and typically the cost of the remote is about 200 rupees. So you have a nice TV which is up on the wall. Okay, and roughly 50,000 rupees you have paid, and it falls once and it breaks into pieces. Okay, and you have a remote for the same TV which is costing roughly about maybe 200 rupees or 300 rupees. And how many times in the day it falls on the floor? 20 times. And how abused it is on a daily basis, right? Okay, you have a 50,000 item which falls once and breaks, and you have a 200 rupees item which falls 100 times in a day. Okay, and absolutely nothing happens. What you normally do, you simply tap that on your palm and it starts working, right? And you have a mobile, okay, which is now designed, unless you throw it intentionally, if it falls from a certain height, it is supposed to fall at a particular orientation and minimize the damage to the device. Okay, I'm now talking of a product, not necessarily only the electronics or embedded part. So it's supposed to fall in a certain angle. Obviously, for falling in that certain angle, your embedded comes into picture again. There has to be a sensor. Okay, so I know in what angle it is falling. Okay, and then the orientation changes to the heavy part of the device, and then the damage is minimized, and that part of the mobile is strengthened mechanically, okay, so that the damage is minimal. So these are the product expectation as a user itself. And then once as a user, if I'm expecting, obviously somebody in the industry has to be working towards designing those products to meet the user expectations. Okay, so those were the general embedded orientation. But now let us delve into the more specific as an automotive system. All you see here is the mobility part basically. Okay, as I use that word, you have a bus, you have a car, you have a the buggy car which is used in some restaurants and the golf courses, and the huge truck that is there. All of them are under the mobility part. But we will spend more time on the car as a industry itself. Okay, yeah, within the vehicles that you normally encounter, they are split into two parts. One is the off-highway and one is the on-the-road. Off-highway is all your mining and other farming equipment, and on-road is typically the name given for the passenger vehicles. Okay, so within on-road, we'll dwell more on the PV stands for passenger vehicles over here. Yeah, so among all the industries that you saw here, okay, why the automotive industry, okay, appears to be very exciting, okay, and maybe sometimes even glamorous also. Glamorous since when I use that word, it is some of the points I have given here. Okay, nobody wants to own a satellite, no. I will not have an intention to own a rocket. I don't want to keep a rocket in my home. Okay, similarly, I don't want to keep a MRI at my home. Okay, but whether I am working in a medical industry, running a hospital and having 25 MRIs in my hospital, I still want to own the BMW. Okay, similarly, okay, I am working in the banking industry. I don't want to have an ATM machine in my home. What do I do with the ATM machine in my home? But I am a banking professional. I still want to own a car. So which means the car is kind of a it's aspiration for the people. Okay, and it's a device where you want to touch, feel, experience. But then there is a condition. Yeah, not everybody can drive a car. Where is the license? So which means it is having that hurdle or a threshold. No, you can't touch the car. You can't drive a car unless you are qualified for that. So which makes me more desirous of having and owning a car and driving a car. It's also a family aspiration, as I said earlier. Every family or every individual wants to own a car. Okay, and similarly, definitely one of the primary factor for a car is it gives me personal mobility freedom. I can go wherever I want. I don't want to depend on the public transport, or I don't want to depend on somebody else, I'll have my own car. I can travel wherever I want. Ubiquitous, again, as it's the word itself says, it's seen everywhere. You don't see other devices everywhere. You don't see other electronic embedded devices everywhere. Car you see everywhere. Okay, and the last bullet over there is it's based on how the innovations or the improvements or the features keep getting added to the vehicle, to the car. Is I spend my time in the home, else I spend my time in the office, and the third one is the third more time I spend is in my car only. Okay, of course, if I'm using public transport, that is different. But if I'm driving the car, okay, either I am sitting in my home or sitting in my office or sitting in my car. So which means car is almost like my third comfortable location, or I want it to be comfortable. Okay, and you bring the cities like Bangalore or Mumbai. Okay, you spend close to about 2-3 hours in each direction. Okay, for going from my home to my office in some busy part of Bangalore, sometimes I take about some 2 hours. Okay, one way is 2 hours, returning is 2 hours, and evening if the traffic is heavy or the weekend traffic is heavy, or if it rains heavily, yeah, you will get additional 2 hours bonus. You spend 4 hours on the road. Okay, so car is almost next to my home in terms of the time I spend, and hence the aspirations on what all is expected in the car. Okay, because I'm spending my time in the car, okay, is also increasing, and that's what is driving a lot of the new innovations that are happening. So car as a equipment for taking me from point A to point B is done about 100 years back when the first car was produced. Okay, now all the things that are getting added, I think I'll come to that in the next slide itself. Okay, so this was a quick couple of slides on in terms of the evolution of the automotive as a industry, or as a electronics itself. Okay, we had about the first car coming almost about 140 years, and then the first electronics part got introduced almost about some 60 years back or 70 years back. Okay, and then the way it has evolved, what you see on the left hand side is the Ford T model. Okay, this is the first one which is having the citation for the first car to be coming out of a factory. Okay, so until this particular T model, factories were hand assembled. Can you imagine? Okay, the cars were hand assembled, but the Ford T model is the first one to use an assembly line, the factory assembly line, where they are coming, I don't know, 10, 20, 30 or whatever is the production capacity at that point in time. Okay, from there to whatever some model that you are seeing is just for a display purpose over here. Okay, the evolution has happened on various domains within the car. The engine has moved from 4 HP to about 250 HP on a normal scale, and you have a racing cars which are having nearly about some 1000 HP power. Okay, so from a humble 4 HP to nearly about some 1000 HPs. So that is the evolution that has happened on the engine. The transmission, a simple 2 forward gears and 1 reverse gear. You have the autonomous or automatic cars, where it's a CVT. CVT stands for continuous variable transmission. That is your typical automatic transmission cars. Okay, and then you have the steering, which was the simple plain manual steering. If you remember some of the old trucks which is heavily loaded, okay, some of us will definitely remember the driver used to literally sleep on the steering wheel to make a turn, especially if it is climbing a hilly area. So the vehicle is heavily loaded, okay, and it's slightly steep. He is climbing up, okay, and he has to take a turn. He literally sleeps or puts the entire his body weight on the steering, versus where you are having your power steering now, okay, where with your single one finger, okay, you can rotate the steering wheel and steer the car itself. Okay, the various power features, okay, power features are all, yeah, I can adjust my seat, I can up and down my windows, I can open my boot space through the remote. Okay, all those power features, everything that you name, okay, is made available as a power features now. You have your sunroof, okay, or those are the other features that are there. And then the safety, so nothing on the car that you see on the left hand side, okay, and seat belt was the first, the beginning. Okay, that is the simplest safety feature that you can have, to where now it can prevent an accident and it can save your life. Okay, the amount of the innovation and the development that has happened, all made thanks to the electronics and the embedded part of that. I'll come to that in the next slide. Your comfort features, yeah, nothing is there on the initial version. So now you have your HVAC. It measures the quality of the air inside the car. It's just not throwing out a cold air onto your face. Okay, it measures the quality of the air, because over a period of time, the quality of the air can get deteriorated, because the same air is getting circulated. So it will measure the quality of the air. Okay, once in some cycles. Okay, once in, let's say, maybe 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it opens out a vent, takes in the fresh air. Okay, and then starts the recirculation again. So it detects the quality of the air. And blindly should it bring the fresh air always? No, again, because you don't know the fresh air outside. You think it is fresh air, but maybe it is very hot outside. Okay, there is a lot of carbon emission on the road. I don't want that air to be coming in. I have got very good filter, but I don't want a slightly lower quality air coming in. I'll take the fresh air only momentarily, unless you order me to keep taking fresh air always. That's the user choice is available. Then there is an instrument cluster, whole amount of information that you can know about what is happening in the car, the telematics. Okay, the car will tell, yeah, where I am. Okay, the car will tell once it meets with an accident, in case. Okay, it makes a call to the police station, it makes a call to the garage itself, the service personnel. Okay, you have the convenience. Okay, convenience is it could be your just remote open and close. There's a convenient feature. I can open my boot space just by again, you would have seen some of those advertisements. Okay, just by moving my leg just below the the boot space, it will open, because I'm carrying too many baggages in my hand. Entertainment. You name it, it is available. Right from the simple radio, okay, to the complex multimedia systems is available in the car now. Okay, these are the innovation that has happened. Okay, this is again a different perspective for the same evolution that has happened. Just look at the way it has happened is, your legs are anyway tied up, because you are using your brakes and accelerator and clutch. Your hand is tied up because I am using my steering wheel. Okay, my palm, my fingers, because I am trying to control the radio. So these are all the things that are tied up. Then the innovators or the designers of the car, they started attacking your other senses. Okay, like, yeah, can I speak and control the car? Okay, can I should I necessarily lift my eyes to see the speed at which I am traveling, because I am looking at my windshield to see the road in front of me. Don't make me change my eye visual angle to look down at the instrument cluster to see at what speed I am going, or what is the fuel that is available. Can you throw the display on the windscreen itself? So exactly like how it is there on an aircraft, especially the military aircrafts, it's called as a heads-up display. Okay, which means you keep your head up only. Okay, and wherever you are seeing the road on the same angle, okay, a faint display of the information that you want comes up on the windscreen itself, so that I don't have to be distracted to look at the instrument cluster. So it appears to give control, because there is a finger control now available. Okay, so I don't want to lift my hand and try to operate the radios. Those controls are available on the steering wheel itself. Okay, and then you can control some systems by voice. Some beeps I can hear if something is wrong, and then comes the ACC, which stands for the automated cruise control system. I'm on a highway. Okay, on a highway, yeah, you don't generally vary the speeds much. You want to keep going at a constant speed. You set the speed at 60, so your legs are free. You don't have to press the accelerator. You don't have to press the brake. It keeps on going. Of course, there are a lot of safety features that has to be implemented. Or another ACC feature is you simply follow the vehicle in front of you. Why go at 60 constant speed? Okay, just follow the vehicle in front of me. If he goes at 60, I am going at 60. If he goes at 100, I go at 100. If he goes at 300, no, I don't want to go at 300, even if the car in front of me is going. So again, you bring a lot of safety features. Yeah, I want to automate a lot of things, but I want to keep within some safe limits. Your EPS, the power steering, okay, as I said, it's very convenient in terms of the heads-up display we spoke. And it started, the innovators started extending your senses. Okay, whatever I cannot see, a person or an object or another vehicle coming from the corner of a road, a junction, I cannot see, because my visual ability is limited. I can see whatever is in front of me. or I can see whatever is visible to the the field of view. But what if another vehicle is coming, okay, from a side road, okay, and I am not able to control my vehicle. So can you have extra sensors fitted which can see whatever my eyes cannot see? So those were the evolution that started happening. Again, as I said, they started attacking the sensors, and then you have the upcoming autonomous vehicles, which will simply completely take over all the control of the vehicle itself. Right now, I am depending on some of those extended sensors. Tomorrow, maybe in another 5 years or 10 years time, okay, the technology is already reaching there. I don't even have to worry about what is happening inside the car. The car is simply taking me on its own from point A to point B. Your C2X stands for that. So car to car communication or car to infrastructure. The cars will start talking to the infrastructure. Car itself will know where is a traffic jam, where there is a road repair going on. One car will tell another car, say, I'm trying to take a left turn. Please be aware. I'm increasing my speed. I'm changing my direction. Okay, so please be aware that this is the speed I'm going with right now. So cars are exchanging information among themselves while driving on the road. Okay, and then they're helping the other cars to make a decision for a safer transit. Okay, so hence now the world is moving towards the autonomous vehicles. Of course, the whole thing is coming in multiple stages. The whole innovation or the staggering amount of new technology that is coming is made possible by the dominantly one single factor. If the industry has to tell, it has come because of the microcontroller technology. Again, for very obvious reasons. Okay, so the topmost is obviously it's reprogrammable, and with the same sensors and actuators, I can write a different logic and make them make the product behave in a different way. Just imagine if not for this, I still had electronics. But if you have to change the logic, okay, I have to change the board. Now I don't have to change the board at all. All I have to do is download a new software, so it will act on the same sensors, okay, according to the new logic that you have given to me. I will work in a different way and operate the actuators in a different way. So that's the single most plus point that has been made possible because of the microcontroller technology. Obviously, as compared to just the plain electronics or the plain mechanical, the timings can be precise or it can be varied. Okay, it can be precisely controlled all the operations in a vehicle. Improved sequencing, again, yeah, this has to happen, A has to happen after B, B has to happen after C. The sequence of operations has to be, can be much better controlled now. Yeah, you can keep adding features. Again, that is one of the features from a reprogrammability perspective. Yeah, I have some 10 features. I can add 4 more features later on in the new version without changing anything. I'm already having sensors and actuators are there, but I'm introducing that particular feature maybe 2 years down the line. I don't have to change the hardware. Okay, all I have to do is download a new software onto the ECU, the electronic control unit. So I have the flexibility. I can modify the functionality. I can take out the functionality or I can add a functionality. Okay, and obviously because of the flexibility and the reprogrammability, the cycle time also is coming down. Okay, I can make new features in a much faster timelines. So these are some of the obvious advantages that are there. Okay, this is one slide. Okay, if you call automotive as an industry, okay, it will be good to know who are all connected actually as an industry. Okay, you have, I mean, they're not listed in any specific order as such. They are just listed just to ensure that everybody who is in some way connected to a car is listed over there. I'll just read from the list here. So there is somebody who is working on a concept as we are discussing right now. Okay, on 5th September at around 4 o'clock. There is somebody in Ford, okay, a team of concept designers who are working on or who are thinking of how a car should look like and how a car should perform maybe 30 years from now. Okay, a team of let's say 10 engineers, some small team, they are thinking of or putting out some design layouts on what a car should be looking like and performing in the year 2050. Somebody is doing that job in Ford, in General Motors, in Jaguar, in Tata Motors. Okay, so the large amount of work may be happening on the current models, but there is a small team who is working or looking at it in a futuristic way. Then there is obviously the manufacturing. Then you have the industry standards and framework. Yeah, you will have to follow some industry standards if you want to make a car or develop software for a car. Your entire testing of the vehicle and its automation. That's a huge industry. When you say car, don't just look at the what goes into the car. What we are looking at is what are all things that are associated with the car where the electronics is there. Okay, your manufacturing and industry automation for the manufacturing itself. You have the entire, Jaguar plant. I mean, I've been fortunate to visit that. The entire, the plant assembly, okay, for a Jaguar car is managed by 3 people. Okay, the whole thing is automated. Okay, robots do everything. There are just people just to ensure that nothing goes wrong, or I don't know, it may be a comfort, feeling of comfort itself that somebody is there in the factory. Otherwise, nobody need to be there also. Okay, that is the amount of electronics and embedded system that goes into the manufacturing, not inside the car, but related to car. So you have the test and automation. All the testing that has to be done, can it be automated? So huge amount of automation industry is there. Your garage and service, an amazing set of instrumentation is happening in the garage and service activities. The kind of devices that they use for analyzing what is wrong with your car. Now the car itself will tell what is wrong with itself. Nobody, the service people, they don't have to open the bonnet to find out what is wrong. The car itself will tell what is wrong with me. It says, yeah, I mean, it doesn't go up to the point of, yeah, please change this, wire to repair me, but it gives sufficient information for the service people to diagnose the problem very quickly. Okay, then there is a certification that happens. The cars have to be certified against the standards. A lot of government rules are there. Yeah, I can't make the car according to your whims and fancies. There has to be an emission norm. There has to be your materials norm itself. I think one of the point is listed over here. The material that goes into making of a car has to be eco-friendly. Even if I want to throw out the car in about 20 years after usage, the material that you are going to throw out after 20 years has to be eco-friendly. Not anything that you want to have according to your wishes. A huge amount of electrical, semicon industry, definitely all that is possible because of the advancements in the semiconductor industry. Data and analytics. The moment the autonomous cars comes into picture, okay, the huge amount of data that gets exchanged or the data that has to be given to the car for its performance, okay, is again a different opportunity, huge amount of opportunity that is there. Infrastructure, again, you have the roads which are paved with sensors. They are experimenting on a stretch of just give me a second here. Yeah, with the sensors fitted on the road, okay, if I, especially as I am going on a highway, okay, on a highway, I am not supposed to be having any perpendicular movement, no? Yeah, all the vehicles are moving along the highway. There are not supposed to be any perpendicular movement. But what if an animal is crossing the road? So there are experiments that is going on where they have put the sensors on the road. Okay, it senses the movement of any object, not necessarily animals, any object that is going in a direction which is perpendicular to the highway, and it starts sending out the messages. Look, something is crossing the highway which is not supposed to be happening. Now, can you imagine? You all may think, yeah, is it unnecessary? But then, if you have a system wherein the roads are like this and the cars are also enabled to receive this information, and if you have to pay maybe 1 lakh rupees more, will you say yes or no? Most people will say yes. Yeah, I will buy that car. I will ride on that particular road. So that is the amount of the thought process, the futuristic thought process that is happening. You are having roads which are paved with solar cells. Those solar cells will charge the electric cars as the car itself is driving. A lot of that is in the experimental stages now. But then, what is being experimented now is what you will see on the road tomorrow. Okay, or maybe some of us will be owning in the years to come. Then, of course, the core software itself, the software that goes into each of these systems, the electronics and IoT. Okay, the complete hardware manufacturing or the IoT as an industry itself. Car is now more of a set of IoT sitting inside a metal or a fiber box. Okay, chemicals, again, the fuel, the electrolytes that go into the battery itself. Cloud and internet is there because huge amount of data exchange is happening. So these are all the industries, and except for few, you leave out the chemical part, okay, and maybe I don't know what else. Every other thing is connected with embedded electronics or software. Okay, so what goes into the car is only small percentage. What is related to the car is, a huge measure of that. Okay, these are some of the latest, and obviously, if some of you are generally connected with the news items, you will be encountering these as the news items. So you have the infotainment. The current buzzword is assisted or advanced driver assistance systems. Okay, which is basically keep helping the driver and keep informing the driver of the potential accident that might happen, or somebody is trying to cross. But then all these are happening with a way that eventually the driver can be replaced, because all these sensors are now giving the information. Me as a driver, now I am getting this information, making my own decision. Okay, if the decision making can be built in, and with all these sensors in place, the cars will now become autonomous. And that's the stages in which the autonomous vehicles are going in. So you have the electric vehicles. Okay, they're already on the road. Okay, huge amount of innovation is happening there. Connected vehicles, we spoke about that. We also spoke about, OTA stands for over the air. Okay, so you get the software downloads over the air, just like how you get your laptop updated. Autonomous driving, there is intelligent driving systems. Huge amount of mobile apps. Exactly, whatever I do in my office and home, I should be able to do it with the car. Okay, can I send messages? Can I command voice control and send the voice SMSs? Okay, or any other office activities I can do in the car? Can you enable that through the apps? Yeah, it's possible. Okay, car is now becoming more and more of a technology vehicle than an engineering one. Engineering is done, engine is there. Okay, and your brakes are there, steering is there. Okay, now can you bring the technology to integrate all of them? Okay, and start working towards making it as an autonomous one. Battery management, that is one of the latest trends. The entire vehicle for an EV, electric vehicle, its entire criticality is depending on how much battery can sustain its power with one full charge. Okay, if model A gives me 100 and model B gives me 200 kilometers, I will go with model B. Can you keep monitoring your battery performance very closely? Okay, so that the life of the battery can be extended. While driving, when you brake, can you use the regenerative braking system? Basically, the energy that gets generated when you are braking, can it be reconverted and start charging the battery? Okay, and hence extend the range of the car by about 1 kilometer. Okay, without this regenerative, maybe it will go for about 300 kilometers on a single charge. But by using the regenerative braking energy, can I recharge the battery? Maybe a small extent. Okay, can I take it instead of 300 to 310 kilometers? I'll extend the life of the battery. So an extensive work is happening on the battery management systems. Battery is again a complex one. It's just not one cell. It's a combination of series and parallel cells itself. People who are in the know, maybe from the chemical and the electrical industry, they know how the electrolytes behave. Okay, now even though everything is in one package, their behavior, their performance parameters are different, each of those cells. Okay, this is the stages of the autonomous vehicles. Currently, as we talk, we are somewhere between L3 and L4. Okay, L0 was done, absolutely nothing to do with autonomous. L1 was an assisted, as I said, your ACC, okay, was part of the cruise control was part of the L1. Okay, and then L2 is the partial, where ACC plus in the ACC generally is on the highways, because I want to keep cruising at a higher speed, at a constant speed and a constant high speed. Whereas L2 as a partial is coming in the city driving also, wherein there's a lot of start and stop traffic. Okay, you move by 100 meters and then you stop. Okay, you move by another 50 meters stop, because the cities are having that. So L2 is extending that. L3 is conditional in the sense, if the conditions are ideal, there is a signal transmitting, all the boards are proper, because it's supposed to read a signal which says the speed limit is 30 and adjust its driving conditions automatically. Okay, so those are the conditional. L4, where it is already there, not on the commercial scale right now, is in a known area. I know I can go in Bangalore again as an example, from the Majestic, let us say, to the MG Road. So it's all predictable driving corridor. I can go from point A to point B in a predictable way. And there it is completely autonomous. So there are already vehicles in place where in some of the cities, from point A to point B, from a certain residential area to a certain shopping area, where all this infrastructure is in place. as required by the autonomous vehicles. There are vehicles which are taking people from their houses to the shopping centers and then dropping them back. Okay, and L5 is the full autonomous, wherein nobody needs to be looking at anything inside the car. Cars are driving on their own anywhere to anywhere. So that's where where a lot of infrastructure has to come into picture. Okay, your roads have to be good, your traffic signaling has to be good, your information that gets emanated from the infrastructure has to be good, it has to be reliable. Okay, all those things are essential for a full autonomous situation. Yeah, these are the various technology. As I said, I mean, I'll not spend much time on this. As I said, whatever as a driver, as a human driver, okay, I'm able to see and visualize, and I'm not able to see and visualize are made possible by the technologies. Okay, a sensor will keep on sensing. Yeah, you have your light sensing, your simple plain vanilla camera sensing, you have lidar, you have radar, you have ultrasonic sensors. Okay, all those will help in getting the information to the driver and then replace the driver. All the driver is doing information decision making based on this. Can you build the logic so that all this information is anyway there, brakes is there anyway, accelerator is already there. Okay, and you simply have to now control based on this information that is coming into the vehicle systems. The only essential thing is all these things have to be made reliable. One is its availability, then the reliability is about is it available when required. It's like I can give an example of an ATM. Yeah, ATM, whenever I go, it's not working. Otherwise, it's working. Now, do you say it is reliable? No, it's not reliable for me. But my friend may say, yeah, it is reliable. Because whenever he is going, yeah, it is working. So the reliability is availability of a system when required. When it is not required, if it is not working, it is fine. No, in fact, we don't even know or we don't even want to know. But when it is required, at that time it is not functioning, then we are in trouble. So it is question of building that quality, robustness, and reliability into the So that's where huge amount of work is happening in all these related areas, and those are all opportunities for everybody who wants to get into the industry. Okay, the cars now, yeah, if you just look at the scene, okay, let's assume you have got into the scene where the tires are flat and the vehicle has crashed. Now I don't know whether the crash has happened because the vehicle has punctured, the tire has punctured, or whether the tire has punctured after the vehicle has hit the wall. How do we know? This is the scenario. But then you now start talking to the car. The car has a built-in black box. The title of this slide says the technology that is there in aircrafts. Okay, it has to come into the car, but then the cost cannot be what is there in the aircraft. For aircraft, you pay roughly about $1,500 to $2,000 per seat, whereas a car itself is available for roughly about $2,000. Maybe for some 1.5 lakhs or 2 lakhs cars are available, which means for the price of 2 seats in an aircraft, you are getting the car itself on the road, but the technology that is there in the aircraft, okay, which is into multi-million, has to come into the car. At what price? No, it cannot be my car price is 10 lakhs, but the black box within the car is another 10 lakhs. Nobody is going to buy that. Okay, so the technology has to be there, then it has to be made affordable and then made functional. So if you look at this, you take this garage to the car to the garage, and then once the garage person analyzes, the car itself will give out the information through the canvas and says, yes, the driver made a mistake. He went and dashed against the wall, and later on only the tire puncture happened. Not because the tire puncture happened and hence he lost the control and went and hit the wall. The car itself will give out, car is playing the role of a detective here, and that is initiated by the insurance companies. Look at that. Who wants the black box to be implemented in the car or in the aircraft is not the technology part. It is the insurance people who want such a technology to come into the car, because they say, I don't want to pay a compensation if the mistake is by the driver. Okay, and for finding out that, yeah, whatever is possible, whatever technology is possible, please put that in the car. So a black box, whether in an aircraft or in a car, is necessitated by the insurance companies, not because of the technology, not because the car companies want to provide that. Okay, yeah. So there are algorithms now which can detect how a person who is crossing the road is behaving. it happens for all of us, no? You are approaching a junction, you see a person, okay, you think he is crossing, but then suddenly he changes mind and goes back, or he changes the speed at which he is crossing the road. Okay, now there are algorithms which are predictive, which can check the behavior of the person who is crossing the road and take action accordingly. Okay, some related trivia related to the autonomous vehicles. Okay, is, can you imagine, because the cars are becoming autonomous, the car manufacturing itself will come down. Is it good or bad? You may say bad, but then don't worry. The technology itself will help you, generate a lot of work. But the car manufacturing may come down because they say once it is autonomous, you don't have to park the vehicle. No, let the vehicle keep on traveling throughout the city, taking people from their source to destination. Now, if you see a car is either parked in the house for except for the 4 hours of travel, remaining 20 hours it is in the house, in the parking area. Okay, I take out the car, go to the office, and park there for about again 8 to 10 hours. Okay, so I mean, if you can have an autonomous vehicle which will keep on driving, I don't require the 1,000 cars that are there now. I require only maybe 100 cars. Okay, less parking space is required, yeah, because they are always on the road. Okay, this is same as the avionics industry. You don't find an aircraft being parked there. That will not generate the revenue. Aircraft will generate the revenue for the manufacturer only when it is flying. Okay, hence yeah, they touch down. Okay, their turnaround time is roughly in a ideal case sometimes even about 45 minutes only. In 45 minutes they are again on the air. Okay, and the other slightly on the funny side is, who will buy a BMW, just as an example, which is autonomous? Somebody buys a BMW because you want to get the thrill of sitting behind the steering wheel, revving up the engine, and or changing the gears very fast. But if the car itself is autonomous, okay, who will buy the luxury vehicles? There are some thoughts on that. Okay, in terms of what happens to the luxury car segment? Okay, if I'm not driving the car at all, it's almost like buying a BMW and sitting in the back seat. Okay, and then another interesting is legal and ethical. If I'm driving today, if I see people on the road, let's say I take a left turn, there are 2 people on the road, I might get into an accident scenario. And on the right hand side, there are some 5 people on the road. So left side I'll hit 2 people, right side I'll hit about 5 people. I consciously decide if I have to hit somebody, I'll take the left turn and hit only 2 people. But how will the autonomous car take a decision in this situation? What kind of a algorithm that you want to build in, or the AI or whatever you want to build into as a logic to decide in such a scenario? Okay, so some interesting points related to that. Yeah, we spoke about this. Yeah, the hybrid and the whole new dimension has been added. Once a single biggest advantage of electric vehicle is it has replaced the conventional internal combustion engine, which has roughly about 15 to 20,000 components. If you count every single nut, bolt, and screw in the IC engine, is replaced by a motor which is much simpler in its construction. A huge advantage, apart from whatever operational advantages. Yeah, that this itself is a huge industry again. The entire infrastructure. Imagine a normal petrol bunk, which are thousands in cities, being replaced by the electrical charging points. Okay, and you require those charging points in the house, in the apartment complex, okay, in the offices, wherever you go. Okay, petrol bunks are on the road, petrol bunks is not in the house, but you require charging stations on the road, charging stations in the house, and charging stations in the office space. Yeah, there are some more tech stuff which are like you may see it as a James Bond movie right now, but then they are there already in experimental stages. Okay, some of the OEMs, okay, they're trying to see this as a gaming. Can I make the driving as a gaming experience? So measure the way a driver drives the vehicle, whether he's applying the clutch, brake, and accelerator in the proper sequence. Yeah, there is a proper sequence. All the people who are driving the car, you are taught. Okay, you can't abruptly change the gear, you can't abruptly brake, you can't abruptly accelerate. There's supposed to be an ideal driving condition. So if you can monitor those conditions and rate a driver, yeah, your rating of the driver is, let's say, 8 out of 10. Okay, and whoever is 8 out of 10, you will get a 10% discount on the petrol. Yeah, you go to the petrol bunk and show your, my rating as given by the car, and I get a discount of 10% on the petrol itself. It's a good feature to have. But then, if I am 4 out of 10 in my rating, I am a very bad driver. I keep on braking unnecessarily. I keep on pressing the clutch unnecessarily. My rating is 4 out of 10. Next time when you go for insurance renewal, insurance company is aware of this information. It says your rating is 4 out of 10 as a driving person. Looks like you're not a good driver, and your premium for you is 20% more. Okay, so that's where you start playing around with the data, but then technology is helping me to measure all these things. Okay, yeah, these are few of the things. There's a, yeah, your glass window is free. Nothing is being done on that. No. So as I'm going in a shopping area, can the McDonald's or a hotel in the vicinity, can it start throwing the advertisements? Yeah, all your, as I said, V2I or V2V communications. Okay, as I'm entering that area, I start seeing the advertisement on my glass window itself. Okay, and inside the, yeah, this is on the outside. Inside, yeah, can I use this glass as a screen itself? Why do I need a small mobile screen? No, I can use this screen. This is quite large here. I can start seeing the movie on this screen itself, sitting inside the car. So these are the you may take it as a wild thoughts at this point in time, but you never know. Okay. Yeah, these are the various subsystems. Again, let's not go into the every single functionality. What is listed here is roughly about 40, and there is only half of them. There are close to about, if you take a modern BMW 7 Series, there are close to about 125 microcontroller based control systems. So can you imagine 125 systems doing various functionalities and controlling the operations of a car? Each of them is a huge potential area in terms of the development that is happening, the R&D that is happening, and the improvements that are happening over there. Yeah, there are various communications are there. Yeah, obviously, in the car, since there are 125 systems, obviously, they depend on each other for their data. Okay, my brakes is best performed if I know at what speed the vehicle is traveling. So all those information is fed to each other. They intensely exchange the information among themselves to perform in the most optimal way as far as their vehicle performance is concerned. So there are various things. There is a CAN, there is a LIN, there is a FlexRay. Most is mainly required for your entertainment systems. Okay, and then you have lidar. That's what we saw for the autonomous. FOTA is firmware over the air, and the huge amount of data that is there, and all other RF communication that happens. Okay, just look at this. I don't know if you're able to see the numbers. Okay, your modern high-end car, okay, is having nearly about 80 to 100 million lines of code. Can you imagine 80 to 100 million lines of code? Okay, whereas my space shuttle, I think it is somewhere there here. Not sure. Yeah, space shuttle. Yeah, see, space shuttle is at the bottom of this graph here. Another interesting question that gets asked is, you had about just about 4 KB of RAM, okay, on a space vehicle which landed people on the moon. Just 4 KB. Can you imagine 4 kilobytes of RAM? And now even 8 GB is not sufficient to just play some music system. Okay, that shows the complexity or the amount of features that is getting added into the systems itself. And then related to this, all we discussed was about the electronics and the software. There are a huge amount of processes and standards. These are again huge potential for the opportunities. Not many people willingly go into this. Everybody wants to keep writing code. I'm sure 90% of the audience here, okay, will keep want to keep writing the codes. Okay, but then if you're writing the code, who will do the testing? If everybody is writing only the code, somebody has to do the testing. Just from a numbers perspective, close to about more than 50% of the work that happens in any industry is on the testing. Because writing 10 lines is very easy, but to ensure that those 10 lines are performing the functionality as required, to prove and certify, okay, that this 10 lines of code is doing the intended action, you require more than 50 to 60% of the overall effort. And when I say the remaining 40% is your requirements, design, and coding. These three will require about 30 to 40%. Remaining 60% of the effort is in verifying that your requirements are correct, verifying and validating that your design is correct, and verifying and validating that your code is correct. And for all of that, some of these processes are there. One of that is the AutoSpice. If you want to write a one line of code in automotive industry, you better be aware of what is the AutoSpice. It sets the requirements, guidelines for writing the software for the automotive industry. ISO 26262 is a new, relatively new entity, not very new. It's been there for close to about 15 years. So these are the things where it's working, but can it be made more robust and safe? Okay, that applies to any critical industry. One is its functionality. The other one is, can it be made more robust and fail safe? Okay, it's performing the basic functions, but by applying the standards, you make it more robust and more fail safe. Ensure that only under extreme conditions, yeah, it fails and doesn't perform as expected. Okay, just because one sensor is not working, you can't make the car crash. That is not an acceptable design. Okay, AutoSAR is another standard, where they are trying to standardize a lot of functionalities. If a common functionality can be found out among the manufacturers, and it is not an IP related area, I don't own the intellectual property in that area, can it be made standard and hence reduce the cost? The moment something is standardized, the cost will obviously come down. So this is another huge area. If somebody is willingly getting into this, okay, there is you don't have much competition in some of these areas. There's a huge competition in the coding area, definitely, not much competition in these areas. Yeah, these are the typical. I think almost we are coming to the end of my presentation. Just about maybe 2 more slides. Yeah, typically, a fresher. Okay, this is called as V model. I'm not sure if in the curriculum this is introduced. I'm sure it is there for typically for the computer science people. This is how generally a product development happens or a software development happens. Okay, you start with the requirements. You do a design. You do a high level design. You do a low level design. Then you implement. Implement can be coding or making a hardware design, making a board, or making a mechanical design, anything. Okay, basically it's called as implementation. For electronics and software, it's about drawing a circuit diagram, putting a PCB, okay, and then populating the PCB and testing it. For the software, again, there is a requirement for the software. You have to design the software. Imagine doing a design for a software which is almost about 60 to 80 to 100 million lines of code. What kind of an architecture you want to do? Okay, even if you assume those 80 million lines of code are distributed among 100 subsystems, each is having 1 million lines of code. If a brake system is having 1 million lines of code, how do you architect? How do you design the architecture of this particular software? So typically, a fresh graduate will start obviously at the bottom of the ladder. Okay, wherein the design is done by the architect in the organization, and the low level design is there. Please understand the low level design. You be good in your design or the programming capabilities. Ensure that the low level design is converted into a code without you introducing your own mistakes, because you because you have not understood the programming language or the way a good program has to be written. Okay, for example, knowing C language will not make me a good programmer. Knowing language is different to becoming a good programmer. Yeah, I know C language, but my logic is terrific or terrible. There is a difference between logic is terrific and logic is terrible. If the logic is, if my thinking logic is terrific, I'm a good programmer. Okay, I know C language. Both of them know C language, but then if the logic is terrible, I produce bad programs. So typically, one starts at the lower side in terms of the testing and implementation part, and then as the arrow says here, on the left hand side, you go from basics. As you start understanding the design and as you start understanding the systems, you start going towards you start adding value. By writing the code, I understand what is the system. By writing the code, I understand the design. By testing the product, I understand what is the product, and hence I can start contributing at a higher level. Okay, these are the typical kind of activities when you enter a service sector. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, yeah, absolutely, sky is the limit for you. Why I should work in a car industry? I'll make one component for the car itself. Maybe in fact, as I was preparing for this, I saw some companies generating one small IoT kind of an application where if I travel in a particular road, and let's say there are two speed breakers. Okay, one speed breaker is at 100 meters from the beginning of the road. The second speed breaker is about 200 meters from the first speed breaker. Now, if I come back on the same road, okay, now this will start beeping me, on my car that you are approaching a speed breaker. Otherwise, I have to remember. No, it says no, don't remember. I will tell you when you are approaching a speed breaker. So another application of where somebody, an external person, can come and tell, yeah, these are the features that can be added in the car. One more I saw was you have the sun shield. Typically, when the sun is low on the horizon, you will pull down that sun shield so that the sun's rays doesn't come directly on your eyes, so that you are not able to see the road. You put that sun shield, okay, but then it blocks the entire area, entire rectangular area. Now, can you design the sun shield in such a way, okay, that it automatically detects where your eyes are? Okay, adjust only that one thin, very thin strip is blackened. It becomes opaque, and as the vehicle moves, as the sun position moves, or as the driver's position moves, that opaque part will keep on shifting in that larger rectangular area. It's an innovation. And if they say, yeah, please pay another $100 more if this feature is there, somebody will be saying, yeah, I'm ready to pay that $100 more. Okay, yeah, these are the challenges basically. Yeah, it's increasing complexity, safety concerns are there, huge amount of interoperability expectations. Everything has to work with everything else. No, I have to put USB device also, I have to put Bluetooth also, it has to charge this also, it has to charge that also. Okay, so large code set, and hence huge amount of testing combinations. Here impossible almost. When you say I have to test about 100 million lines of code, how much testing you will do? When will you say the testing is complete? Okay, shorter timelines again, because users are expecting, I want the new model to come, the new car model to come. Hence the expectation of the timeline itself is very short. Okay, and internet enabled cars are going at 30% per annum. So which means the cyber security is becoming more and more issue. All these are huge opportunities. Okay, if you start learning those technologies. But then what is expected is, I think I'll skip this again when we spoke about this, the various companies that are there. Okay, what is the driving factor is, okay, somewhere somehow is not satisfied with the status quo. That is what is driving the innovation. Otherwise, we are all happy. I think we have the best car now. We have the best mobile. I am happy, but somebody is not happy. He says, no, I don't think we have the best mobile. I don't think we have the best car. Let us improve that. Let us change that. Let us add this feature. Okay, that's what is driving the whole the ecosystem itself. Okay, I'll again skip this. Yeah, these are the current world we are living in. Okay, again, very oft heard vocabulary in the industry. The whole industry scenario is volatile. Yeah, things are moving very fast. Uncertainty is there anyway, not just because of Corona. This uncertainty has been there for the last 20 years. So it now becomes a normal thing. Complexity, definitely it's complex. Okay, and then ambiguity is there. Okay, there's a difference between uncertainty and ambiguity. Okay, yeah, so eventually I think we are in the last slide over here. Yeah, what ultimately, yeah, all this is complex is fine, but what is required from a fresher is, yeah, be strong on your fundas. That's it. Okay, to begin with. Okay, and attitude to learn. As I said, your engineering degree is only a comma. It is not a full stop. Okay, your learning begins after you complete your engineering. Okay, one interesting example I normally give is the unboxing of a fresher. Okay, again I'll use the mobile as a typical example. You order a latest mobile on Amazon. Okay, once you get that at your home through the delivery boy, do you open that box after 10 days? This is typically to the new generation. You don't wait for 10 days. No, yeah, let it be there. When new mobile has come, no, yeah, let it be there. Box. I think I'll open it for after about 10 days and see what it is. You already have thrown the old mobile because the delivery is coming in another half an hour time. Old mobile is thrown. Okay, old SIM was the big one. You already cut it to that nano SIM size, and the mobile also is already having the battery half charged. So you take about less than 2 minutes to open and put the new SIM and start using it. Right. So your waiting period for a new mobile for it to be operational is about 2 minutes and 30 seconds. Now, what should be the industry expectations out of a fresher when he says, yeah, I am completing my engineering and I'm joining. Okay, so in the same 2.5 minutes, can you start working? Here is the requirement. Yeah, start writing the code. Right. Then you cannot say, no, I don't know this technology. I don't know this language. I have not learned this. I don't know about this. Okay, please, let me spend about 6 more months to learn something, and then only I can start contributing. So 2.5 minutes when we are expecting something versus maybe 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 6 months. Some industries, some organizations, some companies spend nearly about 6 months on training. Okay, yeah. So with that, I think I'll complete. Yeah, this one is more in terms of, yeah, maybe some of you will join the automotive industry, and yeah, you may be working on a car which can fly. It's a personal flying car, and do you think it is not there? It is there, and it is being experimented. Okay, who knows? You may be part of that team there. Okay, so I think I'll complete this presentation. Okay, so thank you for all your patience and the patient hearing. I hope I've been able to communicate the potential that exists. I didn't talk of the numbers, how many engineers are required. If you just look at each of those potential areas, okay, straight away multiply that by multiple thousands. That is the potential that exists. Okay. All you have to be is be good, be strong at what is expected out of you. Okay, so thank you the SRM team for giving this opportunity to interact.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. The nice talk.
Yeah.
Any questions from the participants? Please write your questions in the box or raise your hand. Any questions from the participant side?
Yeah, well, they are preparing to ask a question. I'll just show a short video.
Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully they'll be able to see this. Yeah, don't worry about the sound part. It's not very important. Yeah, I'll just give a context.
Please write your questions here.
Yeah, this is a lot of technology has to be proven before it comes onto the road. So this is one of the projects where I had participated. Okay, this is for an organization in the UK, in the United Kingdom, where they were working for an OEM, and the experimentation was, again, this whole world is moving towards the autonomous vehicle, as I said. So this is a vehicle convoy, as they call. Convoy means where the vehicles are going just one behind the other. Okay, if you just see here, yeah, this is the particular Volvo car. Of course, this is an engineer in Volvo itself. Yeah, all you are seeing now here is, yeah, maybe I'll just stop for. Yeah, you are seeing a truck in the front, and then there is another truck, and then another 4 vehicles are there. Here, essentially, only the front truck driver is driving. None of the other drivers in the vehicles behind are driving at all. They are having their hands free. They are just, they are physically not attached to the front truck, but they are electrically or electronically attached to the front wheels, which basically means I can just be going behind the large truck in front of me. Okay, another advantage they are looking at is if I am going independently in my car, okay, there is an air resistance, okay, happening for my car, and hence my fuel efficiency is less. But if I am driving behind a large truck, the air drag on my vehicle is less. Okay, because of the the ergonomy that automatically builds up in this convoy, so my fuel mileage will improve by maybe 1%. It's okay, 1%. You multiply it by millions of vehicles that are there on the road. Yeah, 1% means maybe 1 million liters of petrol. Okay, so some of the technology demonstration experiment is happening here, wherein you simply log in to a vehicle which is already on the highway and simply say, you take me until the next junction. Once my junction arrives, I will log out of this convoy. Yeah, only this guy is driving. This truck is talking to the rest of the vehicles, and they are simply following it. And none of them are having their hands on their steering wheel. Their hands are free. Yeah, if you can see here, this lady is comfortably reading a magazine in her seat. And once her junction comes, where she wants to divert from the main road, yeah, then she takes control. She says, yeah, I want to log out of this convoy, please, I'm taking a control. And then, yeah, she goes into her, deviation. She gets into the city. She exits from the highway and gets into the city. Yeah, so of course, no, these are all the technology demonstrations towards the completely autonomous vehicles. And this was the engineer, with whom we were working. My team was working. Okay, yeah. So that's about the short video over there.
Any questions? If no questions, let's thank the speaker. Sir, thank you, sir, for the wonderful session. I'm thankful to this our president and management for giving opportunity to host this talk. I'm thankful to the vice chair and pro vice chair, pro VC and registrar, our HOD and all SRM community for the hosting this talk. And I'm thankful to this ITKM department for helping us in organizing this nice talk. I'm thankful to this all the audience, to all the students who are very much interested in learning something from the speaker. So hope this is very much useful for us. We'll have a lot of talks like this in the future. So thank you, sir, for giving giving nice talk.
Thank you, team.
Thank you so much.
All the best to the students community.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, yeah. Bye from me.
Bye, sir.
Bye.